guys have on player development. So at this time, I'll pass it over to Ken and let him do his thing.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm hoping that this will be a little bit interactive with everybody. So I know that you have your screens off, but I am going to ask, hopefully, for a little bit of participation. Um, it usually goes a little bit better like that. So we're going to start off. We call this presentation Human Athlete Hockey Player because this is what we believe in, that good human beings, good athletes, hockey player is sort of the third part of that equation. And we'll start off with a little bit of a question for all of you. Why do kids play sports? Anyone want to jump in with an answer? You can put it in the chat or you can chime in.
Okay, I'll jump in, Ken.
Thanks, Jessica.
No problem. I'm going to say it's for fun is the primary reason.
You got it. No secret, right? Fun is the reason why kids play. And it's also the number one reason why they quit sports is when they're not having fun. Now, there's some really interesting research, and I don't know if you can read this, but Professor Amanda Visick did some large-scale studies on kids and youth sport, and they asked the kids themselves what made sport fun. And here is the list of the top 20 things that kids said made sports for them fun. Now, they came up with 81 different determinants. These are just the top 20. But from an adult perspective, what's missing? Take a look at this list. What do you think is missing? Any ideas? Because as adults, we talk about it maybe more than we should.
Winning.
That's it, Priscilla. Yes, winning, right? It's not that winning isn't important for the kids. It ends up about right in the middle of the pack at number 42, but it's just not the most important thing for kids when they consider what makes sports fun for them. So that's really important for us to keep in mind when we're the adults around sport. For example, the three top picks, three most important things when we take all those determinants and we kind of narrow it down here. Trying hard is number one, positive team dynamics and positive youth coaching is the other. Those three appear, they're the same whether the players are 15, 16, 17, 18 years of age, whether they're 9 and 10, whether they're boys, girls, whether they're house recreational players, or they're top competitive players at those ages. Those are the same. And the thing for us to keep in mind as the adults around this is not all the things that we think are important necessarily line up with the kids. So we just have to make sure that we're creating the right experience for the kids when they go through things, right? So, second question, I want you to think back. A lot of you probably have kids involved in the sport because you had good experiences when you were younger. What makes a great youth sport experience? Somebody can share their thoughts here. What do you remember? A great coach, someone said. There we go. Theo, thank you. Yep, positive coaching is something that we know is important, and a good coach. What else do you remember about your youth sport experience? What was good about it?
Your teammates.
Teammates, yeah. 100%. What else? Nobody. Improving 100%, right? They want to see themselves get better. So good coaches, you remember your coach, you remember lots of your teammates, you remember the things that were around the sport, you remember the improvement. And what's common is we think kids might be a little different today, but they're not. They want the same things from their youth sport experience that we all got. It's why we've kind of brought our children back to sports. It's because we had good experiences. And a lot of it wasn't around the technical and tactical that you remember. It's about really how the sport made you feel. It's the experience. So for us, from a USA Hockey perspective, we can sort of narrow down all the things that when we discuss this with groups of people into these three main buckets. So looking for a positive experience. We want some type of age-appropriate framework, things that are going to be for kids at the right time, that they can, that's accessible for them, right? And then, as you've already mentioned here, they're looking for some development. They're looking to see themselves improve, both personally and physically. And then underneath there, we say, a healthy balance between winning and development. Because like I said, every kid wants to win. But from an adult perspective, what do you think the healthy balance between winning and development means? Anybody?
I think doesn't the development lead to winning, right?
Well, good development certainly can, for sure. Yeah.
And I think that the focus being on, the outcome's not so much important as like who wins the game isn't as much as just being able to see that there is development, there's progress, smaller goals, not just necessarily shooting for the win.
Yeah. Perfect, Jessica. Yeah. Like if you talk to coaches, NHL coaches, we want to talk about the process, right? It's the process of youth sports. We learn from the doing. It's the experiences that we have, and hopefully their kids are getting, positive experiences. They're learning good life lessons. We want that for our kids. And as you've pointed out, if we're doing development well, the winning starts to take care of itself a little bit. So that's what we would sort of mean by that positive balance between the two. It's us as the adults, maybe not over inserting ourselves into the process and letting the kids sort it out themselves. So what are the influences on the kids, right? If the player, your child is in the center of the ice there, well, there's all those things that they're trying to learn. There's the physical skills, the hockey skills, hockey sense development. There's the psychosocial component to it. The officials are out there as well inside the playing surface, but around the outside, there's your local program. There's the coaches, there's the role models, and there's you as parents. We all have equal parts to play in creating the right experience for our kids. And if we're not all on the same page, sort of us as the adults around the outside, we usually notice that it's not going as well for the kids as we would like it to. So this is important for us to keep in mind, who's influencing the kids and how do we insert ourselves, and take ownership of our little piece of the pie there. So what would you say if we asked you, when do you think kids in ice hockey peak in their development? At what age? Anyone take a stab at that? 14U, Jill says. Okay. Anyone else have a guess? Katie, looks like you're coming off mute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, don't jump in there, Katie. 11 from Theo. Okay. We're getting younger. Anyone willing to go the other direction? Well, if we look at human development and sport development, and if we consider that ice hockey is an early participation, late specialization sport, most of the time we would look at players starting to maybe hit their peak between 23 and 26 years of age.
Wow.
Yes, wow. A lot of times we get ramped up. We think things happen. I can tell you that you don't even have any idea who's going to turn out to be good in our sport until after everybody goes through puberty. So 16, 17, 18, things are starting to take shape. But even at those ages, the players that end up being the best ones on the planet weren't always the best ones at those younger ages, even at 15, 16 years of age. And we'll take a look at some of that as we go. Now, here's an example of just the different pathways that players take, for example, in their development. When you consider 14, someone said kids peak at 14. Well, I just did this recently. I just grabbed in Colorado where I live. I looked at one of the teams that just won recently the 14U AA state championship. And I backed up and said, okay, well, what was the path of those players? Where did they play along the way? So first year 10U is 9-year-olds on that state championship team. 7 of those kids played in the house league inside that club. 3 on the travel C team, 3 on the travel B, 1 on the travel A, none on the AA team at 10U. The next year, same type of thing. Couple of outside players that played at a different club. First year squirt or first year Pee Wee there. Now you've got only 2 players at first year, or sorry, 1 player at first year Pee Wee played on a AA team. By the second year, now you've got 7. 1 kid was a AAA player, came back. And then the following year, that group ends up winning a state title. This is normal. You can do this in any state. Look how many kids played house hockey at those ages. So the point really is we don't know how things are going to shake out. A kid at 10U, for example, might have been playing for 6 years and another kid for 2. Yet at 18, the kid that was, you don't know who's going to be good at those older ages. So some patience on our parts as adults. Let the kids go through the process, let them enjoy things, let them work hard. And again, things shake out a little differently sometimes than we think as adults. So when we look at boys and girls and their physical growth rates, the dark line there under boys and girls, you can see chronological age kind of going across the screen there. That line represents the rate of growth. The dark line, the average rate of growth for girls, average rate of growth for boys. And as you can see, the girls, they kind of hit that adolescent growth spurt somewhere 11, 12, 13 years of age. Boys a little bit later, but everybody's a little different, so they can hit it sooner or later. And a lot of changes are going on. Not just from physical growth, but you look at hormones and you look at different steroid, testosterone in boys, all kinds of things. So have a little patience because we'll see kids go through that growth spurt and their coordination will change. Kid that looked like a pretty good skater, all of a sudden, geez, they're a little out of whack. Just be patient. They'll come back. So these are the things that we show the coaches that we want them to be aware of. And it's good for us as parents to be aware of it too. Here are different physical capacities. The darker the line, the more active development in those areas are. You've got chronological age at the top. Again, these are averages, but again, different things at different times. So If you look at the very top from a skill acquisition standpoint, fundamental movements early on, that's what's most important, those gross motor skills, gross motor development. And then fine sports motor skills sort of really start coming online between 9 and 12 for most of the kids, maybe a little bit earlier for the girls, based on their growth. So things for us to consider. Also, when we look at cognitive development, girls a little bit ahead of the boys, but if you take a peek here, it's not until really, 10, 11, 12 that most of these things are really, really jumping out at us. The best example I have that people can relate to is if anyone has a teenager, I'd ask them, does your teenager drive? And those that have teenagers that are of driving age, what's your car insurance like? Well, usually goes through the roof, simply because we know that the brain's ability to judge consequence isn't quite fully formed in all of the kids at 15, 16, 17 years of age, right? And some of these things from a cognitive development standpoint, we can't rush. No matter how much education, how much we try and do with kids, they're going to get this as their brain develops. So this also plays into the timing of what we do from an athlete development standpoint. The next big category we have is trying to develop really the overall physical literacy in our players. People have heard of reading and writing, math literacy. This is sort of the same thing. And what we know is we learn by doing. When players are motivated to move, they'll move more. As they move more, their competence goes up. When their competence goes up, their confidence goes up. When they're more confident, they're more motivated. And it's this nice virtuous circle. Prior to the age of 12, what we really want to do is expose our kids to as many different movements as possible. This actually helps them in their adaptability, and certain things do transfer back to our sport. So these are the results of an internal study done by the National Hockey League on the NHL players, by the NHL Players Association and the NHL. 98% of the players, 98% of the players in the NHL reported that they were multi-sport athletes up until at least 14 years of age. Over 80% said they were multi-sport athletes until 18. So these are, for those that we think that need to specialize in ice hockey early, again, like I said before, we're an early participation sport, but a late specialization sport. And what did these players self-report? Well, this is from the American players, because some of the sports were a little bit different, but here are the different sports that they said they played growing up. Here's when they started, and then what they believed the values were that they got from playing ice hockey. Values and attributes associated with playing hockey. They thought teamwork, hard work, passion, character, commitment, accountability, discipline, work ethic, respect, and leadership. I think as parents, if we took a step back and said, yeah, those would be some pretty good things for my kid, I think we could all agree on that. So the sport has the ability to help kids in those areas with those values and things, but only if us as the adults around the sport do what we say we're going to do. So we talk about developmentally appropriate training. Does anybody have an idea? What do you think is developmentally appropriate training? Any thoughts? tell you what, we're going to watch a video and then we're going to relate it back to training and we'll have a little bit of a discussion. So I'll preface this. This is one of my work colleagues' sons, young Sam. So here we go.
Hi, Sam. Okay, ride the blue bike. And stop. Stop. Okay. Okay, Sam, ride the white bike. Okay, Sam, ride the purple bike.
All right. Look at Sam, that poor face there, right? Looking at his dad going, what the? Now, what do you think Sam's experience was like riding that first bike? Anyone want to describe that? What did you notice?
Looked really easy, almost too easy. He looked almost a little too big maybe for it.
Yeah, it looked easy, right? You'd kind of, would you say kind of mastered that bike a bit there, Jessica?
Yeah, that looks like maybe one of those kind of, your first training bike that you could, go without, what do they call that? Without the pedals on it at first, you just kind of kick it around before you start pedaling.
Yeah. So the second bike, what did you notice about Sam riding the second bike? So Katie says confident. Yeah. All right. Some confidence there. Anyone else notice anything about the way he rode that bike?
He struggled a little bit more, and he was a little bit slower in the return.
Yeah, a little bit struggled a little bit. How could you tell? A little bit more challenging, Sue says. Anyone else? Anyone notice that he was standing up on the pedals he didn't sit down at all. So a little bit big, certainly some challenge. Did it look like he was having fun on that second bike though?
For sure, he definitely.
Yeah, I think he looked.
Yeah, looked like there might be a little bit of fun with that. Now the third bike. What do you think about that experience for Sam?
I think that face right there says it all. Look at him. He just that
Kinda,
was too hard.
Too much. So if we were to equate sort of practice design, the activities that coaches are having kids do, where do you think we want to spend the majority of our time? Little bike, middle bike, last bike.
Yeah. I would think the middle, just because it's fun but challenging, where it's that kind of good balance.
And I think that's the right term for it, Jessica, the right balance, right? He can do it, but there's still a little bit of a challenge to it. We know that if things are too easy all the time, we kind of don't have the same level of, mental focus, where there's a little bit of challenge. We're always trying to find the right challenge point when we set things up for the kids. But it can't be too hard. It can't be so far over their head that they never have success. If they don't have success, they lose confidence. And as somebody said, I think it was maybe it was Karen that said something about, or Katie, look more confident, right? That's important. Kids need confidence. So we're always trying to balance things. Now, is there ever a time, could you think, when a coach might be inclined to use the little bike, or a situation like that?
I would think if the kid is just not showing confidence because they're struggling with the skill we're working on.
Yeah, that could be a reason for it, for sure. Or maybe it's, the team's lost a couple games and we want to do something where they feel good, and right. There's always an option or an occasion when that little bike, something like that, might be good for the kids. But as we said, we're trying to live as much as possible at that edge of challenge. Now, might there ever be a point when a coach says, let's jump on the big bike? Anybody? Any thoughts?
Perhaps sometimes just to see how more, I don't want to say more challenging, what I mean? Just to kind of, one, it changes it up a little bit, maybe makes it a little interesting.
Yeah, or just showing them, a bit of the sport that's beyond them. Like there's always a point where a coach may come along and, really, really stress them. But as long as we keep coming back, the majority of what we do is around that middle bike level of challenge. We know that good learning we're setting the kids up for learning, which is what we want. So let me change my slide here. Sorry. So this is our definition of what developmentally appropriate training is. And we're trying to adapt to the age, experience, and abilities of each of the kids. The interesting thing is, I don't know how many teachers are in the room here, but your hockey team's just like a classroom of kids. Every one of them is different. And from an athletic standpoint, doesn't matter the team, there's always a bell curve of performance abilities. There's the bulk of the kids in the middle. There's a couple of kids that are at the little more precocious end, and there's a couple that need a little more support. And it's the good coach that can kind of balance this out a little bit, not always dealing to just the group in the middle, but finding ways to tack on something for or support the kids at the other end, right? So there's a bit of a challenge to what it is that we do. So you should be thinking about those things and what you see when your kid shows up at the ice rink. So let's take a look at what learning looks like, and learning maybe from an athletic development standpoint. We're going to watch a video and we'll come back and have another little discussion.
Here it is. Extra. I'm sick of doing this, guys. That's it. I found it. That was it. I found it.
So my first question to the group, skateboarder dude there, is that an athlete? Is he an athlete?
I'd say so.
Yeah. Somebody you want in your team?
Definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. That kind of perseverance, that takes a lot. So did he learn? Did he learn?
Yeah, it looked like each progression or each time doing it, at the one point, I think he like pointed to his where he figured it out. Like each thing was kind of maybe adjusting something until it clicked in his head of what he needed to do to make it, go the way he wanted to.
Oh, 100%, Jessica. Was that painful to watch?
Probably not as painful as it was to do it, but yes, a little bit. At times it felt uncomfortable, maybe of just seeing him like, oh, he's falling over and over and over.
So
And then
from
he'd
a
get
learn,
it, and then there was also kind of the point where he'd get it, and then he'd go, well, okay, it looked like he got it, and then he'd fall, or you know what I mean? And then the second time you're like, it's not always a straight line of progression. It was kind of, that ups and downs until eventually it kind of all comes together.
yeah. So is failure part of learning? Do we have to get comfortable with some failure? If that was your kid out on the ice, right? I like that, Jessica. First attempt in learning. Yeah. It can be a painful process to watch. Now we learn by doing. That's really important. And it takes a lot of reps, takes a lot of time. Was there anything else that you noticed watching the video that you think helped the learning process? Did you notice anything that he did? So work through frustration. Oh, absolutely. Did anyone notice him walk off in the corner there? A little bit of reflection. How about from a support standpoint? Was there a lot of coaching going on?
It seemed very
It was hard to
independent.
tell. I mean,
Oh, go ahead. Melody, why don't you jump in there?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say he seemed very independent. I mean, he had somebody videoing and cheering him on, but I don't know that they were doing any coaching.
Yeah, as far as we know, right? Yeah, he had a group of friends the camera showed in the distance. So we don't know that he was getting a whole lot of outside coaching and direction. A lot of that, I think, as Jessica pointed out, was him feeling his way through the process. But we do know he was supported. And that's really important. Our kids need to feel like they're supported. Whether it was the camera person or his buddies off to the side, they're there and they're supporting them. Right? Now, we don't know for sure, but if that group wouldn't have been around and it was just him by himself, would he have stuck with it? We don't know. But we do know that positive support is really, really important from a learning standpoint. And that it's not always the coach jumping in. They have to learn by doing. They got to get the reps in. They're gonna fail. They're gonna try things. So really important from a learning standpoint that they learn by doing. So from our standpoint, we have a program that a lot of the programs here follow, our ADM, and it's based on age-appropriate high performance. It's an age-appropriate high performance path for development, includes best practices for training and competition. And we use the word high performance not from a kid's perspective, because there's nothing high performance about kids and youth hockey. What we talk about from a high performance standpoint is the environment that we as the adults create. Are we setting up the right environment? Are we supportive? Do we do the very best job with the kids that we can in what we do in creating the environment around the sport? So that's where the term high performance comes in. So that's my little spiel on overall development. It's that we take a step back and we look at physical growth, cognitive growth, social growth, understand that it's a long process. Like, things aren't shaken out in the wash until after everyone's gone through puberty in our sport. And again, a little patience on our part from everybody involved, support the kids from a positive perspective, make sure that it's fun on their level, and they're going to have a great experience and hopefully have the same passion and love for the sport of ice hockey that myself and the staff on the call with us have as well around Black Bear Sports. So does anybody have any questions? Blake, looks like you're coming off mute there.
Nope, nothing from me.
Okay.
Well, I'll hop in and say I want to thank Ken for hopping on today. I know he's a busy guy. We could grab some time from him today to chat with our teams and the federation. So we really appreciate you doing this. We have it in recording, so if you want the recording, just shoot us an email and we'll get it over to you. And again, want to thank everyone for hopping on today and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Melody.
Thank you.